All right, we are, this is episode 10. Let's go. All right, so the question is, why do icons look the way they look? Like, why do their faces look like somebody just pinched them? Let's answer that question. I feel like the birds are really loud today. Hey, welcome back, my friend. So glad you are here. I hope wherever you are having a fantastic day. I am having a fantastic day. It really is. It is surprisingly fantastic. It's a long story why that is. We're not going to go into it, but it is a fantastic day. Man, we are going to talk about something really cool. We're going to talk about why the faces in icons look the way they look. Because there's a really specific reason, and we're going to dive into all of that. But first, what's playing in the studio this week? One of the things, difficulties, struggles, strategies, I don't know, pick a word. One of the things that I deal with on a regular basis is that I work currently a full-time job, and I paint icons at night when everybody goes to bed. And that means I paint, in short segments, which means if I listen to anything for a long period, if I listen to anything that has length to it, so like a long-form podcast, I usually don't get to finish the whole thing until several nights later, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with that. It just means that there's really only one thing playing in the studio in a given week. And this week, I've been really, I don't even know the word. I've been really blessed by this interview that Matt Fradd put out on YouTube recently with a young guy who went through the conversion from Protestantism to Catholicism. And I think what impresses me the most with this guy is that for as young as he is, he grappled with the truth of Catholicism in a very theologically deep way. Like way deeper than I think I ever did as a convert. And it's been a real blessing to listen to him talk about his journey. So if you haven't seen that episode, I'm going to put a link in the description below so that you can go and listen. It's a really encouraging story about how this young man got from born and raised Protestant to just a really theologically deep Catholic, practicing his faith on the daily. So really, really good stuff. Go check him out. Go check out that interview. It's Pints with Aquinas. It's always going to be good stuff. But this one particularly has resonated this week, and I want to share it with you. So that's what's playing in the studio this week. Not a whole lot of update stuff on commissions and icons. Remember, if you want to commission an icon, if you want to reach out and have a piece done for your personal devotion, or you want to commission a piece for your parish, or some version of one of those things, remember, go to the contact page on my website, reach out, let me know what you're interested in, and we will dive into what it looks like to commission an icon. That link will be in the description below as well. And of course, do all the algorithm things, like, subscribe. Got a lot of people subscribing lately, and that has been a lot of fun. I'm thankful for each and every one of you that is keeping up with the studio and what we're doing, what's being made, and it's been a lot of fun. There will be a change to the studio. Life is really full right now between full-time job, full-time iconographer, full-time dad, husband, Catholic, all the things. Lots of things going on. And I've noticed that's putting a squeeze on my YouTube content. And I'm in a place right now where I would rather do one really good video each week than two moderately okay videos. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to switch back to one video per week. I think I'm going to publish those on Mondays. Mondays seem to be pretty good days to do that. Okay, so let's jump into today's topic. Why do the faces in iconography look the way they look? And before I get into the specific symbolism within each of the facial features and postures and the different things that you see within a portrait of an icon, I want to talk about I want to go back to one of the things we talked about in a previous video. See, you have to remember that an icon is not just a pretty painting that you put in your house or you put in your church. An icon is a window that you open into the kingdom of heaven to see reality at its fullest expression. So when you look at an icon, you're not looking at what might be. You're not looking at, oh, look at that. It's like a little cute wren, just right there. What you're looking at is the fullest expression of human existence in the beatific vision, in the presence of God. And so, no, a face in an icon shouldn't look like a face in a modern day portrait or painting. They shouldn't look the same. The facial features shouldn't have the same proportion. They shouldn't have the same look. They should be different, because when we enter into the kingdom of heaven, we will be different in our new and glorified bodies. And I think one of the difficulties for modern Catholics today is that most of us were raised with a Renaissance approach to art. We think that everything should be this full expression of human existence. And that's all really good. There's nothing wrong with that. I mean, it's not like a Renaissance style painting that's highly detailed and very accurate. It's not that that's wrong, and that's not what I'm saying. But the point is, we all have in our minds this idea that if I look at an icon of, say, Saint Teresa of Calcutta, then I should see her as I saw her on earth in that icon. And the problem is, that's not how it is. And I'm really curious, as we go forward in this modern age, how iconography is going to be shaped by the reality that we have images of the saints that are recently canonized. We know what St. John Paul II looked like here on earth. We know what St. Teresa of Calcutta looked like here on earth. And one of my concerns as a traditional iconographer is that my patrons are going to want an icon that looks like St. Pope John Paul II when he was here on earth. But again, the difficulty with that is he doesn't look like that in the kingdom of heaven. There is a difference. There is a newness. There is a reshaping of the human experience in God's presence. So all of that said, when you're looking at an icon, and we're just talking about faces today. We're not talking about robes. We're not talking about any of those things. When you look at a face in an icon, you're looking at what the human experience may look like in its fullest expression in the kingdom of heaven. So yes, they are going to look different. They are going to look a little bit alien. And I think when we step back and say, okay, I know that I'm looking at something different, and we let go of that more Renaissance approach to art, we're able to more fully take in this artistic expression before us. I know that, like, personally for me, that was one of the hardest parts about even diving into this idea of iconography. Like, I remember looking at the first few of them and being like, whoa, that's very different. And once you understand the symbolism, once you understand the purpose, it's much easier to let go of this, like, oh, I think it should be a realistic portrait. You know, it just happens to be painted in egg tempera instead of oil, whatever. Once you're able to let go of that, you can fully embrace what an icon is supposed to be in terms of its symbolic reality. So let's talk about some of the symbolism then. One of the things that I learned that actually has been one of my favorite, like, new things to learn as an iconographer is that in an icon, you will only ever see a face straight on or at what's called 3/4 turns. So you still see this eye. Sorry, I'm gonna look at the thing over there. You still see this eye, you know, you can still, it's never a full turn, right? Because the purpose of that is communion. When you pray before an icon, you are communing with that saint. You are spending time with that saint. And to look away is to break communion. Now, if you think about that, you think about some of the icons where you think, oh, hold on, I know that I've seen an icon where somebody's looking completely away from the viewer. And who is that usually? Well, in most icons, if you see a person fully turned and they're not looking at you, right, full on or 3/4, it's usually Judas. And that like blew my mind. It's like, oh, Judas is turned away because he broke communion with Christ. Therefore, he is no longer in communion with us. And so usually, 9.5 times out of 10, if you see an icon where somebody is turned away, that means they broke communion with Christ. And the best example of that is Judas. So notice in the icons that the saint is always in communion with you. They're always looking at you, because the purpose of the saint is to help you walk in communion with Jesus. So if you ever see an icon of a saint, and I'm making this up, I've never seen this, but I'm making this up. Let's say it's an icon of Saint Cecilia, and the artist has chosen to do like she's looking down, and the icon is not looking at you. It means it's not a traditional icon, and they're not following the traditional formula for how to create a sacramental that helps draw you into the kingdom of heaven. The saints always look at us because they want communion with us, right? So that's the first one. That's my favorite in terms of like facial feature symbolism, this idea of looking at and communing with. But then you can get into the basic things, right? So you'll notice in an icon, most facial features are exaggerated one way or the other. They're bigger or smaller. And again, all of the things in an icon are symbolic, and they are there on purpose to communicate to you a truth. So let's take the eyes, for example. You know, in some icons, you'll see excessively large eyes. The Coptic icons are pretty well known for this. The very large, childlike eyes. And the reason that you see eyes that are exaggerated, like these just giant eyeballs, in an icon is because the saints are beholding the fullness of God in the beatific vision. And that, like, your eyes just have to get bigger in order for that to even be possible. And so the icon is symbolically telling you that this saint is beholding the beatific vision. So a lot of times you'll see the eyes have been exaggerated to be larger. The shadowing around the eyes is larger to draw attention into the reality that the eye is beholding Christ. A lot of times, most of the time, you will see noses that are far slimmer, they've been pinched, and mouths that are narrower and thinner. And the reason for that is because the icon is trying to communicate to you that in the kingdom of heaven, the sense nature of the human experience, meaning our ability to sense the world around us, our senses, how we sensually experience the world, have changed. Because as humans, our sense nature is very dominant. A lot of our sins come from the reality that we're drawn in through our senses, whether it's sight or smell or taste or whatever. So in an icon, you'll see the nose and mouth that's been pinched and narrowed, and that is to communicate that our senses have been rightly ordered, so that when we are in the presence of God, our senses no longer have dominance over us, because Christ has made us new. Then you get to things like beards, hair, the aspects of a man or a woman that are more ornamental. And that really is, I think, and this is my own personal, I haven't read enough from scholars on this, but I'll give you my personal interpretation. The hair and the beard of an icon is really ornamental. And in my opinion, it's supposed to be done in a way that's beautiful and fluid, because it shows the true beauty of the human experience in the kingdom of heaven. But now there's one difference. And a lot of times you'll see in the beard of Christ, in a Christological icon, you'll see this split in the middle where it kind of forks. So the split in Christ's beard is to show that moment during his passion where he's being abused and beaten and parts of his beard are being torn out, right? And you might say, well, in heaven he may not have that, but The resurrected Christ had the scars in his hands and feet and side. It's plausible to think that he was missing a piece of his beard because of the abuse that he took during his passion. So that's one of the unique things that you'll see. Now, one of the facial features that I grapple with the most is ears, because in an icon, a lot of times you don't even see very much of the ear. And I personally don't know what to do with that, because on the one hand, yes, it's again the reduction of our sense nature, meaning our senses have been put in their proper order. But at the flip side, heaven is full of the beautiful music of the kingdom and all of these creatures and angels and saints that are singing the praises of God. So I almost think like maybe there should be Dumbo ears, because they're taking in all of this beauty musically. But then again, that would look excessively weird. So I'm glad we don't have, you know, like saints with Dumbo ears. That's probably a good thing. There's one other thing. You get to things like the light and the way lighting works on the face, because the lighting on an icon is meant to remind us that we are no longer in a world in the kingdom where there is light and darkness. There is only the light of God, who is the fullness of the light that we need. And so his holiness, his light is coming out of us. And so when you look at a saint, you're seeing the light of the saint coming out. Some people will point out that there are still lights and shadows, and yes, that's true, and most of that is there as an artistic it's there as an artistic expression of form, but it also shows the progression of how, as we grow closer to Christ, we grow more in his light and less in our own darkness. So the symbolism there is to show that these were people that were born in darkness who walked out of that darkness into light. So that's the primary symbolism in the facial expressions and the facial features of a saint in an icon. And I'm gonna start there. I'm gonna stop there, because the dude back there keeps like I'm done. And you know what? I've said all that needs to be said, and that's good. I hope that helps when you look at an icon. I hope that gives you a better understanding of what it is that you're engaging with in that sacramental art form. You know, the more I sit with icons and look at iconographic faces, the more I've come to appreciate the uniqueness of this particular sacramental art form. And hopefully, through all of this, you'll have... Oh, I got choked. Ooh, mercy. Hopefully, all of this will help you better appreciate why icons look the way they look and why saints look the way they look. That's all I've got for you today. I hope you have an amazing rest of your day. And until I see you next time, keep climbing.